Hey everybody, this is Amazing Fantasy Football. I am Josh, and over there is the Willow to my Mad Mardigan.
Love it. Christopher. Love it.
You know what, Chris? I got about halfway through that movie, and I'm like, and
The old
I
one?
had to,
Or
yeah,
the new one? Okay. Well, it's a series.
the new one's a
series.
show.
You're
Yeah,
right. You're right.
I got the halfway through it, and I had to go to bed because I'm like, man, I have to get some sleep, and I'm not gonna finish it. I really just don't care.
Doesn't hold up well, you would say?
I mean, not for me. Let's put it that way. Not for me. It's just, it really needs about a half hour shaved out of the movie.
That's
It's
probably not a fair. I'm sorry. That probably is a fair criticism. Is it 2
It's a
hours?
2 hour
long?
movie that really should probably be closer to an hour, or not an hour and a half.
It's probably one I can't show to Lizzie. Definitely not. Amy.
Yeah, you could show it to your oldest.
We finished Wednesday together, so there's a one straw in her hat, if you will. Doc, what's up, boy? Streaming Brock Purdy tonight in the playoffs?
Why not?
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. He's been pretty good.
It's a good matchup. Not great so far, but you know.
Evening, Doc. To be upfront, we are not including quarterback streamers moving forward in the playoff portion.
What?
Was it tight ends we weren't supposed to include? No, we just talked about tight ends. It was him or Gino, says Doc. I thought we were
So far, good call. Oh, you
didn't agree.
never agreed to it, so we.
Okay. Once again, folks, communication being our strong point, we are on point.
I was very. Let me put it this. Let me put it this way.
I was
It was left very open ended. So I was like, I'm going to put a quarterback in here, and I'm not going to get caught with my pants down.
My pants are firmly down around my ankles in a figurative sense. Oh, that's great stuff. But I could also pull one out of my rear end on the fly. Wait, no. Well, technically,
You can have one of mine.
my sleeper is a quarterback. So there's
So is mine.
Oh, so you went double-barreled. Gross.
And triple barreled and quintuple barreled.
All right, so
Technically, it would be sextuple barreled for my wide receivers. But anyways, that's 6.
Yeah, I know.
Okay.
Doc says his pants are triangular around the waist area at the minute. Triangular around the waist area.
Let's not elaborate upon that. That does not elaborate on that.
Let us elaborate on the news. How about that?
Before that, Chris, we don't have any teams on bye this week.
Oh, good call.
But we do have some Saturday games.
Yeah, it's a very good call, actually.
We've got the Colts, Vikings, Ravens, Browns, and Dolphins, Bills in that order, starting at noon and probably like 3:30, and you know, like they're probably doing like 7:20 or whatever Sunday Night Football starts. This is not barely family friendly at all. In fact, we don't really like families, so you know.
Well, I love mine, but we do mark it as not for children, which probably hurts our viewability because the one we didn't mark as children a couple years ago was our best video ever, as in Josh's best video ever.
I think that really just is. I think it's really just because it's my face and my face only. Just saying.
Well, that's not a bad point. But let's continue with my face for a minute.
That's not.
We have to. I've got the news here. As
Or do you?
bad as it may be. I think I do. And it's in order of position. Good Lord, Purdy is 11 for 11, 98 yards and a touchdown. Goodness gracious.
Yeah, obviously you don't have the game on right now.
I just turned it off. And remember I said I didn't know how they scored the one touchdown.
11 for 12.
Aha! Aha!
Ha
Bench him. I'm just kidding.
Do you remember back NFL.com's like fantasy football app? Like, man, it had to have been 12 or 13 years ago by now, at least. They were touting in-game substitutions for fantasy football. So like if someone wasn't doing good or got injured for you, you could pop someone from your bench into your lineup, which in theory was like a good idea, but like what if you weren't just watching your lineup and
just going down in flames?
Yeah. Well, like like your team, like one of your wide receivers got injured, or one of your teammates or your opponents did. They've swapped out their injured one for one that was healthy off the bench, and yeah.
My actual first fantasy football experience for a couple few seasons was a very odd bird in that, to your point, we had what we basically called audibles, like a mulligan. After the fact, like after the week was over, you could you got 3 per season.
Yeah,
I don't think we ever got to 5. So we had that, but it was also like a 14, 16, 20 team. It fluctuated in very deep league, and I feel like the rosters might have been deep also, so it was difficult in that regard. But once I got into more traditional week-to-week matchups, probably with you in a league, I can't remember. Sounds about right. When I moved to Iowa City, that kind of really sold me on fantasy football in terms of I eventually left this is my brother-in-law's league, left that league because I was just like, man, week-to-week matchups is the best to me. Like going up against Josh or Doc or whomever, and
that's usually not the best for you.
That's true. We won't talk about that anymore, though. like Doc says, that sounds weird. I'm sure he was talking about something else.
I've heard of it. I've heard of it.
Oh, he's talking about the league. Yes, it was very weird. He's been going for 20 years, dude.
Crazy.
Mm-hmm. All right, on to the news, folks. Got it in positional order tonight.
Okay.
Tests confirmed that Cardinals quarterback Kyler Murray did, in fact, suffer a season-ending torn ACL on the third play of Monday night's game. Oh, wow, I didn't realize it was the third play. Game versus the Patriots. Just a killer, man. Lamar Jackson, with a knee injury, has been ruled out for Week 15. Baltimore versus whomever. Denver Broncos quarterback Russell Wilson, nobody cares, but concussion protocol will be limited in practice on Thursday after he was held out on Wednesday.
Mr. Limited.
Yeah, Mr. Kyler will be back in 8 months, says Docs. Yeah, exactly.
Probably more than that, but
nobody cares about Russ as far as
maybe not playing him, but
exactly. But his offensive pieces took the word.
They care about him.
Yep.
What can I talk about later? Maybe a couple of them.
Oh boy, Mr. Giudy, as I like to call him, because he spells his name weird, and I'm weird. Bears head coach Matt Eberflus told reporters that quarterback Justin Fields is sick and will not practice today. I think that's a Wednesday update. Bears are calling him day to day, so that was news to me, as I had just slotted him into my starting lineup over Goff. So maybe we'll have an asking for a friend later on that. This is pointless news because it's about Brock Purdy. Whoops. He has an injured oblique. Apparently, he is immortal. No, I'm just kidding. Apparently, he's fine. Saquon Barkley, with a neck injury, gets in a full practice on Wednesday. Little tidbit here. New York Giants head coach Brian Daboll said that running back Saquon Barkley, neck, will not have any restrictions placed on him in Week 15 against the Washington Commanders on Sunday night. So that's good news.
The restrictions for Saquon Barkley are the defense he's going up against.
Okay, I like it.
I'm actually sitting him in one league. In the playoffs, mind you.
Really?
Care
to expound?
What?
Care to expound upon that, like your options in lieu of Saquon?
Oh, you had to ask. I don't have them off the top of my head, so
that's fine. We can bring it up later while we're talking.
But for real, I am.
Starts. Where were we? Miami Dolphins running back Jeff Wilson Jr. with a hip injury is officially listed as questionable for the Week 15 matchup against the Buffalo Bills. He was able to get in a limited practice session on Thursday, but continues to deal with hip discomfort.
Limited.
Yeah, so, I don't know. I don't have RBs this week, but Mostert, I think I might have an asking for a friend, including him, later. Ramondre Stevenson. This is not good news. Ramondre Stevenson ankle did not practice in Thursday's practice. I get the impression he's trending out.
Yeah. I actually to do an update on that. I was gonna sit Saquon, but now Ramondre is sounding like he's not gonna play in a good matchup. So it's
he was one of the options that you had in there over Saquon.
Him and Saquon, or I had Ramondre Stevenson and J.K. Dobbins in. Dobbins in a great matchup this week.
We
against the
might talk a
Browns.
little bit about Mr. Dobbins later in the show.
I would hope so. It's a great matchup.
Right? Yeah, exactly. So yeah, not a little worried about Ramondre. Doc says Purdy injury was an oblique contusion, I believe. Oh, just a bruise. The primary concern was rib fracture, but ruled that out. So he's good, which of course he's playing right now. So duh, but it's good for next week talk, if you will. Ramondre misses would kill me this week. What RB y'all think would be number one if he does miss? Hold on to that thought, sir, and we'll get to my favorite 5 RBs of the week, and there might be an option there for you, especially towards the end of it. And we'll go quick as we can. We just did Barkley. We just did Jeff. We just did Ramondre. Aaron Jones, shin, back at practice Tuesday. Okay. Is that a Saturday game, Josh? Did you say that?
No.
So. Okay, well, that's a little weird. Maybe I'll get a quick little update.
The Packers were off last week. That's why they're having a Tuesday practice.
Thank you, sir. I get the impression he's probably going to be okay. I could look into it later if we see fit. 49ers head coach Kyle Shanahan told reporters that he expects wide receiver Deebo Samuel to return from his knee and ankle injuries in around 3 weeks.
So you're screwed if you have him in fantasy football.
I mean, maybe championship game, depending on your league settings. And
that would be like week 18, though.
Even then, I feel like Ayuk has been playing well. I mean, Purdy's playing well. Ayuk's, I don't know who caught the touchdown tonight.
He's been okay. Kittle.
Yeah, and Kittle is there too. He's there. Blocking. No, I'm just kidding. I'm kidding.
Catching the touchdown.
Oh, did he catch the touchdown tonight?
There you just go. Said that.
There you go, Dr.
Twice already, actually.
Oh, my bad. I talk a lot when I do the news because that's what I'm supposed to do.
You're supposed to, like, throw it at people with your mind. Why would you talk? You just project it with your mind.
That would go much quicker. Although my mind is pretty slow. It's
true.
Miami Dolphins wide receiver Tyreek Hill with an ankle was listed as a full participant in the team's walkthrough practice on Wednesday. He came back in the game. He's probably going to be fine. Chiefs are activating the 21-day practice window for wide receiver Mecole Hardman. Per source, Hardman was on IR with an abdomen. I can't talk tonight. Abdomen injury. But his abdomen. Thank you. God bless it. Abdomen injury, but is healthy enough to practice for whatever that's worth. Sean McVay does not envision Kupp playing again in 2022, if that wasn't painfully obvious beforehand. Las Vegas designates Renfro and Waller to return from IR.
I picked up Darren Waller in my work league, the one where I was trying to sit Saquon, just in case I make it past this week. And I was just going to say that. Now I have another, a pretty good tight end.
They've been out a long time, so you would hope, rested at least.
I would hope that Waller is rusty. 100% healthy.
Exactly. Healthy, but rusty, perhaps. I'll put it that way. The Eagles have designated more tight end IR news. The Eagles have designated tight end Dallas Goedert to return from IR. Okay.
Designate but not activate. Difference.
Yes. Goddard activate. Doc says yes. Kittle producing more than normal already. Haha. Yes. Go Hawks. Screw Birdie. It's a cyclone to a Hawkeye. How about that? All right. Well, I've been the one that's talking. Josh, you are up first with your Fave 5 receiver of the week. It is sourpuss face. Oh, it's great, dude. I just changed the scene. You had settled into that facial expression just at good timing. Anyway, continue, please.
I got Mike Williams and Keenan Allen this week. Mike Williams, he was great against the Dolphins last week, and Keenan Allen has been consistent, steady, and Keenan Allen since finally being a consistent, steady Keenan Allen presence for the Chargers. Allen has averaged just shy of 15.5 points per game in the last 3 weeks, which is pretty much since he came back from injury. 15.5 points per game. Consistent, steady Keenan Allen. Mike Williams lit up the Finns on Sunday Night Football for 20.6 points. Nice. That was last week. Those two get the luxury of playing the Titans this week. The Titans, who are allowing the most points per game to wide receivers, they are the very same Titans who allowed a 17.7 point and a whopping 33.7 points to Zay Jones and Evan Ingram, respectively.
Jeez.
That was last week. Perhaps Chris is going to nominate Gerald Everett in the tight end segment, who is going up against the Titans this week. But I'm going to go with Mike Williams and Keenan Allen being the breadwinners for the Chargers receiving game this week. Gerald Everett?
That's nice.
No?
No, I don't think I include him. He's probably too highly rostered. But fine. My to be clear, with my Fave 5 this week at the running back position, generally we like to call it low-hanging fruit throughout the weeks, throughout the season. But, it's playoff time. I think your choices are a little more narrowed down. There's less teams, less fantasy teams actually playing. And so I'm going to include a couple of higher-end guys, if you will, such as one, Austin Eckler versus the Tennessee Titans. All right, let's get a couple things out of the way here. First off, Eckler is a must-start every week. He is the RB1 on the season. Secondly, the Titans are not a good matchup for RBs. In fact, they are a downright bad matchup. One of the worst, actually. But I wanted to give fantasy managers a closer look so they can have the appropriate amount of expectations in the all-important first round of the playoffs. Eckler is a locked-in RB1 this week. In fact, a high-end RB1 for me because he's more receiver than he is running back.
There you go.
And we all understand that. He is on pace to break CMC's running back receptions record of 116. Eckler currently has 93 catches on the season. The Titans are third best, let me be clear, in both fantasy points per game given up to RBs and rushing yards surrendered on the season. But they have given up
the third fewest.
Yes,
Okay.
to be clear. Yes, third fewest rushing yards surrendered. But they have given up 80 catches to the running back on the season, which is second worst. They have been decent the last 2 weeks in that department, giving up only 3 RB catches last week and 6 the week before. But that was versus the Eagles and Jags, two teams that are apparently allergic to running back receptions. The Chargers are obviously a team that loves to throw to the running back, even in a post-Phillip Rivers era. And their offense is back to full strength, as Josh just touched on a moment ago. With a 47.5 point over-under, and the Chargers favored by 3, I expect many receptions and a few scoring opportunities for the best receiving back in the league. And I'm going to call him a high-end RB1 this week. 15. On to you, sir. More great facial expression. Hey. What's up, Jose?
I feel like there should be some tempered expectations about Austin Eckler. He has not been running the ball rather well recently, if memory serves correct. Don't quote me on that.
I think he'll catch 10 balls easy. He may probably get it.
There's a possibility of that, or there's a possibility that I could just push the ball down the field too, and it won't be to Austin Eckler.
As Doc is saying with Mike Williams, will eat on deep passes, is what he says here.
Yep, I see that. I don't know. I feel like maybe you should, it's a bad week in the first week of the playoffs for all these star running backs. Eckler's one of them. You made the very good point about his receiving work, which is probably what's going to work for him. But that he's going to have to get that done first. But Nick Chubb has a bad matchup this week. Joe Mixon does as well. There's a couple others that I'm forgetting, but there's all these stud running backs. Bad matchups.
Speaking, Jonathan Taylor kind of has a bad matchup. We'll talk about him a little bit later. Vikings.
Sort of ish.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. Sort of ish. That's well said. I like when somebody says "well said" when it's literally not a word.
Well said. You rode the fence and made up a word.
yeah. Doc, CMC has probably the clear-cut RB1 for the week. To be clear on that statement, didn't include him for that reason. Oh, that and he's playing right now, and we do our show on Thursday night.
Yeah, I'm trying to do it. I'm trying to do all the matchups in my head, and I'm like,
of course. But to be clear, I'm still me and Josh differ a little bit. I'm still Eckler top 5 guy this week. at his position.
Okay. That sounds like you want to make a bet, Chris. You still owe me
Yes.
$20 from last week.
How about a drink? Like, we used to do Snickers ice cream bars. Now it's like, I'll buy you a drink. But you tried to pull out $20 out of your ass last week.
Hey, man. You owe me $20 for last week. That's all I know.
That's not true. He lies. All right, on to the next one.
You bet me $20. You lost the bet.
I did
not.
You
owe me $20. Welcher,
I didn't bet you a darn thing. By darn,
you actually did, and you lost.
No, I didn't.
Anyways,
I did not.
My next guy is Jerry Jeudy versus Arizona. Cortland Sutton, no problem. I don't think you talked about Cortland Sutton.
Oh, is he back?
But no, I don't think so.
Okay.
He's very up in the air.
Well, nobody cares lately. It's apparently the issue with that.
Actually, Jerry Jeudy was having a very good game last week, even after Russell Wilson.
He was like I think he was a top 5 wide receiver. Continue, please.
Jerry Jeudy, he last week, as I mentioned, he was targeted 9 times, caught 8 of those for 73 yards and 3 touchdowns. I believe one of those touchdowns came from Brett Ripien after Russell Wilson. Ripien? Anyways, left the game due to a concussion. It didn't look good for Russ. If Russ is unable to cook this week versus Arizona, I'm definitely going to be lowering my expectations on Jerry Jeudy against the Cards. While the Cards may be giving up the 11th fewest points to wide receivers, if Sutton doesn't play, it's going to be the Jerry Jeudy, Greg Dulcich show. Even if Sutton does play, he might still be a little hobbled from his hamstring injury, which definitely can limit wide receiver production. If Sutton comes back fully healthy, I'm still not too scared of how much he eats into the production of Jerry Jeudy. He's been kind of the target leader for the Broncos this year. Obviously, Jeudy has missed a game, and Sutton has missed a game. Overall, it's been Russell Wilson targeting Jerry Jeudy, you know. Now, that's not saying a whole lot, considering that Russell Wilson has not been cooking up very tasty gourmet meals. It's more like he's cooking up Army field rations, and I don't even know, man. Have you ever had an Army field ration as of late? They're pretty good. Anyways,
no, I haven't, but continue.
Oh, no, seriously, they're actually pretty good. Anyways, like I said, I'm still not still too scared about Sutton, even if he does come back. And you know what I'm saying? Jeudy should be a nice flex play / low end wide receiver 2 for you in the playoffs this week. So if he's on your team, I would recommend starting him.
Solid. I like it very much. As Doc says, Dulcich apparently has top 5 tight end usage, percentage wise. That's true. And again, I think I've touched on this once. We'll probably talk about him a little bit later. Russ cooking equals hot.
Ew.
I couldn't even get it out of my mouth.
What the fuck does that mean?
Russ cooking hot dogs boiled and skim. Russ cooking equals hot dogs boiled in skim milk and topped with caramel sauce. I feel like you might be able to stomach anything with some good caramel sauce on there, but maybe not that.
Ew.
Onward
and skim milk? Why would you cook hot dogs in milk, period?
I know, it's hilarious. Oh, I'm going to cry. That's funny. Okay, on to my second Fave 5 RB of the week. Again, I put these in somewhat of a order as far as ranking. Isaiah Pacheco versus the Texans. Despite sharing snaps,
I knew you were going to go after this one.
Oh yeah, man. I will wring this well out until it's dry.
No, it's a good matchup.
It is.
Pacheco's been okay. I don't remember how he did last week, but he's.
Well, we'll get to it here in a second.
Okay, yes, please tell me because I don't remember.
Despite sharing snaps with Jerick McKinnon, who was the RB1 last week with 28.9 points and a half-point PPR, this will be
really?
Yeah, dude, he was like a top 5 player at any position, I think, depending on league format, of course. But half point, he was the RB1. But this will be a game plan and game script game that Isaiah Pacheco can take full advantage of. In fact, I wouldn't be surprised if Pacheco has a similar game in terms of fantasy points this week.
Watch it be Ronald Jones.
Is he back? Right. He's like,
I don't know, but watch.
Yeah, right. No, again, I wouldn't be surprised if Pacheco has a similar game to McKinnon, only in terms of fantasy points scored. But let me continue. Pacheco has been on fire lately. No, he's not scoring 20 or 30 fantasy points per game, but he has been very efficient, and his usage is as good as it gets for a Chiefs starting running back. He's averaging 16 carries per game and 5 yards per carry over the last 5 weeks. And while he only has 2 rushing touchdowns in that time frame, He did bring in all 3 of his targets last week in the same game where McKinnon had 9 targets. But that was versus Denver. The game plan versus the Texans will be run heavy, like it is every week versus the Texans. The Texans are dead last in fantasy points per game allowed to running backs and dead last in rushing yards surrendered, and just gave up 25 carries for 104 yards and 2 touchdowns on the ground to the Dallas duo of backs. Considering the matchup doesn't get better for RBs and the most likely game plan for the Chiefs, I like Pacheco as a mid-range RB1 this week.
Cool. Next up is Garrett Wilson. We'll see if Mike White is able to come back in this juicy matchup. And I believe you talked about Mike White and Newsy. They're calling you out on that one too.
Whoops. Was he hurt?
No, it's okay. It's okay. Yeah.
I'll look.
Even if it's Joe Flacco, I will give you an update on him in just a second.
That's right.
But if it's Joe Flacco, which I have no reason to see why it won't be. Quick side note here that the Jets seem to have pretty much given up on Zach Wilson, even though they just upgraded him to QB2 on the depth chart. But I think that was before the news of Mike White being more or less a guarantee to be out there.
It's looking like Sunday. That, but I can touch on that when you're done talking. Go ahead.
I believe he has some bruised or broken ribs, or something with a torso injury. Damn it! Why do you put me on the spot like this, Chris? No, but I can't say I blame the Jets for giving up on Zach Wilson. Maybe he'll get some maturity between now and the beginning of next season. But man, I don't know. Like Zach Wilson, just for a kid who looked uber talented coming out of college, like he is just like just a slight sign of pressure, and he just freaks out and just mentally collapses.
Yeah.
For now, let's assume that I have it. For now, let's assume that's Joe Flacco. Given the news today, that sounds like Mike White is going to be the starter this week. Flacco began the season targeting Garrett Wilson 8, 14, 11, and 6 times. I believe that Flacco started the first 4 weeks, so that's that. Right. That's some pretty good opportunities. During that span, Wilson was taking his 6.5 yards per target and turning it into 9.56 yards per reception. So a little bit of yak there. Pretty good for a rookie. Pretty good, especially at the very start of his rookie season, too. Over the last 3 weeks, though, Garrett Wilson is averaging 17.4 yards per reception. The Lions, of course, they are giving up 33.7 points per game to wide receivers. And when you factor in that, I'm not really sure how much Corey Davis and Elijah Moore are really going to matter, because it seems to be the Garrett Wilson show in New York. There's going to be the running backs catching some balls there too. But I like Garrett Wilson being a nice wide receiver too this week, and maybe nice. Even a wide receiver one. I love him and another guy that we'll be talking about here in a minute, Chris.
Like it. To touch on chat a little bit here.
It's Corey Davis.
Doc says, love hearing you, loving Pacheco. Yeah, man. As far as I remember your roster, which is pretty well, because I do the recap every week, you don't have a whole lot of choices with Ramondre very strongly potentially being out. A lot in Pacheco. Very strange for Jets to go from Wilson being inactive to now QB2. I have to give the coach the benefit of the doubt. The head coach, Saleh? Yeah, I think that's how you pronounce it. He's been managing this roster and team very well. So whatever he wants to do with Wilson moving forward, I'll give him the benefit of the doubt. Going back to Josh's comment earlier about perhaps being out on Wilson, maybe he can sit for a year as a QB, as the backup, learn a little bit, because he was thrown in there. He was from not a small school, because it is a Division 1A, but BYU, I'm going to throw that out there. And whether it ends up being with the Jets or not, I hope he can get his shit together. Let's just put it that way. And yes, Garrett Wilson has been a very good receiver as of late. On to my third RB of the evening for my Fave 5. May I rhyme, folks? Again, a little bit of low-hanging fruits here, going in order, descending down the RB1, RB2, flex rankings. Jonathan Taylor versus the Vikings. So let's talk about JT's matchup first. The Vikings are pretty bad on defense. Awful, actually. In particular, versus the pass, where they rank dead last in passing yardage surrendered, 6th worst in fantasy points per game given up to the QB position, and 2nd worst versus wide receivers. They're middle of the pack, aka 15th worst in fantasy points per game given up to RBs, and 17th worst in rushing yards surrendered. So clearly, one should attack the Vikings through the air, which is exactly what has been happening on a weekly basis. Outside of Dallas in Week 11, where Zeke and Pollard went off for 30 carries, 122 yards, and 2 touchdowns, and Weeks 2 and 3 versus the Eagles and Lions, respectively, the Vikings have been quite solid versus RBs. But they do, however, allow the 5th most receptions and 5th most receiving yards to the running back position. Now let's talk about JT and his usage. Since Jeff Saturday took over in Week 10, Taylor has averaged... What's that?
Said Jeff.
Taking over Week 10, Taylor has averaged 24 touches per game, whereas beforehand he had only hit that mark twice in Weeks 1 and Weeks 3, which seems like an eon ago, right? Obviously, injury baked in there. He missed some games. Saturday, I feel like I was talking about the day there for a second. Saturday has more of a run-heavy approach, and JT is fresh off of a bye week and should be well rested. He also has 4 targets in his last 3 games, meaning 4 in each game. So since Taylor's usage has seen an uptick under Saturday, he is more capable of exploiting the Vikings through the air. He is well rested, and quite frankly, the Colts' passing attack is underwhelming. I expect, whether it's a pass or run-heavy approach, that JT will be heavily involved and sits as a low-end RB1 for me this week. What do you think, Colts fan?
Yeah, I don't hate it. I mean, I don't know if I call it low-hanging fruit. I think you're downplaying your
I appreciate
choice
that.
there.
I just want to, that descending order, that just given playoff folks, because if you're a playoff team, generally you have a good roster, and generally you're having to make some tough decisions. Hey, go back to your Saquon Barkley decision. I mean, nobody would have thought that, but you start talking about matchups.
Oh, that was another running back with a really bad matchup, Saquon. It's
fair. Yep, that's exactly what I'm getting at. Is people need choices this week, and I don't want to not touch on the RB1s and the RB2s of the week.
Okay. Terry McLaurin, my next guy. I believe I talked about Mr. McLaurin 2 weeks ago. In that same game, the Commanders happened to be facing the same opponent that they're facing this week. They're actually doing back-to-back matchups against the New York Giants. How is it 2 weeks apart and it's back-to-back matchups? The Commanders were on bye last week, and so therefore they're doing back-to-back matchups versus the New York Giants. In that game, McLaurin caught 8 of his 12 targets for 105 yards and a touchdown. I'm not sitting here claiming that he's going to replicate that stat line or fantasy score exactly, but I think that McLaurin, once again, could be a good start for y'all. Especially for those trying to advance to the next round of the playoffs. The Giants, who started out as a really solid defensive unit this year, has really kind of shown their true colors in the second half of the season. They're giving up at least 64 receiving yards and a touchdown to both A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith. So Terry shouldn't seem all that scary for you this week.
Love it. Caught me crunching ice, trying to mute my mic right as you finished up your matchup. My apologies, folks.
Couldn't just not crunch the ice.
It's impossible.
It doesn't want to be crunched.
It's impossible because I'm anemic, remember?
You're hurting the ice's feelings.
That's what it's there for. No, I'm just kidding.
To abuse? I don't think so.
Apparently, sir. Chris is anti-ice. All right, on to
you're European.
My 4th, aka second to last, Fave 5 RB of Week 15. We've got J.K. Dobbins versus the Cleveland Browns. First off, the Ravens might be forced to lean heavily on the running backs due to having to start either Tyler Huntley at quarterback or the rookie from Oregon, Anthony Brown.
So it's Huntley.
It's leaning Huntley, to be fair, to be clear.
Didn't you say Lamar Jackson was out already?
Yes, I did. In the news, Lamar Jackson is confirmed as out for Week 15.
So it's Tyler Huntley.
Huntley's confirmed out. I'll touch on that real quick when I finish my matchup.
No, you said Lamar Jackson's already ruled out, so it's Tyler Huntley.
Huntley is also ruled out?
No. Huntley's going to be the starter.
Oh, so it's Huntley. I completely misunderstood what you said there. It may not be a guarantee with Huntley. To be clear, I think it might be concussion. It's trending he is in, but it's not clear
concussion.
yet. What's that? No, I'm not. So Anthony Brown or Tyler Huntley. Last week was the first time both Gus and Dobbins were healthy in the same game all year. And Dobbins held the slight edge in snap percent and carries, with Dobbins getting 43% of snaps in 15 attempts, Gus getting 34% of snaps in 13 attempts. Dobbins had an 8 yards per carry average. Gus, nothing to sneeze at, had a 5.08 yards per carry average. And Dobbins scored. I think it's something like his second best career game ever or something.
Yeah.
Let me continue.
Chris, can I need to interrupt you for a second.
Sure.
Were Gus Edwards and J.K. Dobbins ever on the field at the same time last week?
Last week or last year?
Last week.
Oh, you know what I meant.
No, healthy. I'm asking a legit question. Were they ever on the field at the same time?
I have no idea.
So what you're saying is that J.K. Dobbins could actually be Gus Edwards in disguise.
I am Batman. No, I'm just kidding.
I am J.K. Dobbins.
That was a bad Bruce Wayne reference. I don't know, guys. I'm working with not a lot here, but let's go on. Again, 8 yards per carry for Dobbins, and he scored over Gus's 5.08 yards per carry. Furthermore, a good reason to lean on the backs is Cleveland has struggled versus running backs. They're allowing the 7th most rushing yards to the RB position, along with the 3rd highest yards per carry, and the 2nd most touchdowns to the position. And to top it off, Dobbins has scored 3 times in only 2 career games versus the Browns. I like Dobbins as a mid-range RB2 this week.
I like him a little bit more than that, but okay.
Okay. I'm excited about him, and I also need him with Ramondre most likely being out.
Mm-hmm. I hope Ramondre bounces back so I can sit Saquon, but that's okay.
Yeah, I wouldn't hold your breath. Or do, I don't care.
I'm holding my breath right now.
So back to my last running back of the
I'm going to get to my last guy holding my breath.
That doesn't
Christian
work.
Watson.
You can't talk and hold your breath. It's impossible.
This might be a bold call. Maybe it's not.
Who was
Damn
that?
it. Okay, I'm done. Okay, Christian Watson is my last guy. This might be a bold call. Maybe it's not. Last week on Thursday Night Football, the Rams held the Raiders passing game largely in check, specifically Devontae Adams, who had only 3 receptions for 71 yards.
Fair.
But the week before, the Rams gave up over 125 yards and a touchdown to both DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett. In week 12, the Rams gave up 320 passing yards to Mahomes, who just spread the ball like butter around the field. Like butter. He threw it at 10. He had a completion at 10 different players. And the Rams D is just not as prolific this year as it was last year, even in years of yore. I'm starting Christian Watson wherever I can. The 4 games before the Packers bye last week, Watson was averaging 22.9 fantasy points per game. That is some definite wide receiver 1 territory right there. Not only is this a better matchup than one night thing, but in week 16, the Packers are playing at Miami. Week 17 versus Minnesota and Lambeau, and week 18
nice.
don't play week 18. But if you do, Detroit. So Christian Watson is gonna go down as a 2022 league winner.
Is this more or less a death knell for Alan Lazard also?
Yeah, Alan Lazard is the never was this year that everyone was trying to make him out to be.
I know. I have to start him in Dynasty. It's like him or Terrace Marshall or Gallup. Honestly, it's bleak. I told you I'm not going to win. Yeah.
I hope you. I'm rooting for you so I can play you next week.
So you're going to win the championship? Or have 2-week matchups? No, we must not. The first round is 1 week.
Because we do it right.
The first round is 1 week. The championship is 2 weeks. Dynasty. No. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it is, dude.
Now there is a bye week this week for me, myself, and the second place person.
That's right.
Because we play it right.
Because 6 teams make it. There's math there. Okay, math is not fun. Let's go on to my last round.
Math is fun. You just don't like math. You don't respect math, but math is fun.
I don't. My last Fave 5 running back of the evening is one Zonovan Bam McKnight.
Ooh, I'm gonna give you some pushback on this, but go ahead.
Oh yeah, well.
Go ahead.
But I wanted to share something real quick that I can't seem to find right now.
I'm not gonna save your ass on this one.
Is that not working? Hold on. A little bit of fun facts here about his nickname. Similar to the cartoon Bam Bam from the Flintstones, the little kid from Flintstones. Quote from Zonovan himself. "I was banging on the toys," Knight said. And as my uncle walked in, he said, "That's all you hear is bam, 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 bam." And it just kind of stuck after that. Yeah, this is not going well. I'm supposed to be able to display my screen here, but it's not going well. HU OBS. Anyway, I've got a picture of this guy that I'm going to ask you about. Can you remember another running back with the same nickname?
No.
No? Bam Morris. Of the,
no idea who that is.
Bam Morris of the Pittsburgh Steelers. And briefly, very briefly, the Bears, and a little bit more Kansas City towards the end of his career. Big guy. Big running back. Number 33.
Okay.
All right. Bam, not Morris, Bam Knight, is the clear-cut lead RB in New York after last week versus the Bills in Carter's return. Typo, my apologies. Bills and Carter's return. His top line where Carter was limited to 5 carries. Now, Carter did have the advantage in targets with 6, but that's exactly what we expected. And it's not like Knight wasn't used out of the backfield at all. He saw 2 targets, of which he caught both. Knight also proved his bandwagoners right, as he performed well versus a much tougher Bills defense as opposed to his previous 2 matchups versus the Bears and Vikings. The undrafted rookie now has gained 298 total yards on 56 touches for a 5.32 yards per touch average, and caught all of his targets in the process in the last 3 games. This week, he gets the red-hot Detroit Lions that have actually turned their defense around somewhat, at least versus RBs. I bring this up to temper the expectations a little, though I still see Knight as a solid start for many playoff teams that will be relying upon him this week. The Lions are allowing only 80 total yards per game to RBs in the last 7 weeks, which would be a league best for a full season, if it were a full season. Neither Aaron Jones, David Montgomery, Saquon, nor Dalvin Cook have topped over 45 total yards against them. And the Lions have only ceded 3 scores to the position in that same 7-game span. But because of Knight's ascension to the top of the depth chart and his usefulness to the Jets' offensive game plan, which tends to be run heavy, I see him as a fine start this week. But because of the improved Lions defense, in particular versus the running back position, I have to rank Bam as a low-end RB2/high-end flex this week.
Okay. I can get down with all of that, Chris.
I love it. Love it. Nice.
Would you do Bam Knight or Saquon this week?
I'm sorry, who's Saquon versus again?
The Commanders.
I'd probably give the name value to Saquon. I know name value means jack shit in week 15, but say that again?
Joe Mixon. I believe he's playing the Buccaneers.
I think I'd probably go Mixon. I know they're probably a great matchup. That team's struggling on at least the offensive side of the ball. I know that doesn't necessarily help Mixon. I just think that...
Who, the Bengals?
No, Buccaneers.
Oh, okay.
Buccaneers offense struggling. Therefore, I think with them not putting up a ton of points like they kind of used to in the last couple of years, I think you can establish the run against them and be patient with the run, which would favor Mixon.
Okay. Chris, you ready to do some tight ends?
Oh, did you go first? That's right.
Ready to plow through some tight ends?
Yes.
I
love it. I love it.
My first guy is Hunter Henry. Hunter Henry and the Patriots get the Raiders this week. Earlier in this season, this would have been a matchup to salivate over, but in the last several weeks, the Raiders have only allowed Joe Everett to top 50 receiving yards, and they haven't given up a touchdown in that span. So Hunter Henry stands a chance to get it done. He gets work in the red zone. That's kind of what you're looking for out of your tight ends anyways, is a touchdown. So, I think I mean, it's short and sweet with Hunter Henry. You know, if you're streaming tight ends, why not? It's not Jonnu Smith. The only problem is that Mac Jones is apparently terrible. So there's that.
Fair.
I got my worst one out of the way. Go ahead.
Oh, you done? You
Yeah.
done? Sorry, I was playing around with stuff. Not to be misconstrued the wrong way. On to my first tight end streamer.
You're playing around with your tight end.
I was trying to fix this whole display thing, honestly. Anyway, my first tight end stream of the evening is Greg Dulcich versus the Cardinals.
Hey, that's one of my guys.
Okay. Right. Yeah, that's what I was asking earlier. I know. I used Dulcich last week. And my next guy might be very familiar too. Actually, it will be my next guy because I forgot to update that note. Might be very familiar also. So Dulcich I used last week. I will include anyway. Dulcich is an easy one, really. He gets the targets. I think Doc made a comment in chat earlier about his usage percentage. He gets the targets. He's averaging 5.6 targets per game since their week 9 bye and has had 8 targets in each of his last 2 games. And while he had an underwhelming performance last week, scoring only 5.7 points, he was still a tight end 1, being the tight end 12 on the week.
That's how bad tight ends are.
I know, but he did so without
Fucking
a touchdown. The point being, his usage has been great, and he is not a touchdown-dependent tight end. And 2 weeks ago, the other 8-target game I mentioned, he was the tight end 4 with 11.5 points, and you guessed it, no touchdown. One might say he's due to score, actually, this week, especially in a premium matchup for tight ends, which is exactly what he gets this week. Probably don't need to beat this dead horse to further death, but the Cardinals are a matchup to target for tight ends as they are the worst in terms of fantasy points per game given up. And they continue to struggle as they just gave up 3 for 70 to the Patriots' Hunter Henry last week. For those keeping score at home...
I just talked about him.
There you go. For those keeping score at home, that is comfortably within tight end 1 performance with 8.5 half PPR points. And that's exactly how I feel about Dulcich this week. He should be a tight end 1 in this poopy tight end landscape this week in the most premium of tight end matchups. nod, yes.
I'm not making fun of you. I'm making fun of, like, that's my making fun of face for tight ends.
For tight ends. Yeah, it's funny because it was like a rotation. It was like a nod and a shake of your head. It was like, yow, around and around. Almost like you're drunk, but you're not. So
I wish I was.
Try harder. We believe in you.
I really wish I was. It's a school night. I can't.
Right. Well said.
Anyways, my next guy is Tyler Conklin. This is my second of 3, maybe 4 Jets in this week. Conklin should hope that Joe Flacco starts this week, but it sounds like he's not going to. During the first 4 weeks with Flacco under center, Conklin was averaging 8.43 points per game, which made him roughly the tight end 9 at that point. Which apparently the tight ends have gone down the pooper, up the crapper. Anyways, tight ends are not scoring as well as they were at the beginning of the year. Tight ends suck. I hate tight ends so much. Anyways, even if Mike White does play this week, he has a very good shot. It sounds like Mike White is going to play, barring some horrible setback. Detroit is giving up 11.4 points per game to tight ends, or the 5th most. So Tyler Conklin, this is one of 3 juicy matchups in a row for Tyler Conklin. So if you're looking to stream a tight end through the playoffs, Conklin.
Love it. Be here with my next tight end, which is Dawson Knox versus the Dolphins. Though Knox is inconsistent, he is coming off a nice game versus Jets where he caught 4 of his 7 targets for 41 yards and a score, making him the tight end 4 on last week. The Dolphins are pretty bad versus tight ends, giving up an average of 6.1 receptions and 55 yards to positions, bad enough for 8th worst. And have given up 7 touchdowns. They did hold Kittle and Everett in check the last 2 weeks, but before that, were averaging at least 75 yards or a touchdown in the previous 6 games. In the spirit of you could do worse, I see Knox as a borderline tight end 1 this week.
Sure. I mean, whatever.
Exactly. Keep shooting your darts, homie.
You could have said you could have said anyone. If you'd have said Austin Hooper, I'm like, all right, let's draw the line here. If you'd have said Mike Gesicki, like, no. Will Disney, like, well, maybe. Like, well, he's playing right now. Okay.
Right.
If you would have said Jordan Brevin, I'm like, no. But anyone other than those three,
Knox
fine,
is a
whatever.
fine option. Knox is a fine option. I love the darts throwing analogy that we often use for tight ends and streaming quarterbacks, but
it's pretty much what it is with tight ends, man. It's not even. I don't even think it is with quarterbacks. I think you can kind of look at the matchups and be like, this is a good matchup for quarterbacks, and blah blah.
For sure, yeah.
And for tight ends, it could be the greatest matchup in the world for tight ends, and they score you 2 points, and you just
poop the bed.
And you want to go.
I also like to liken it to a shooter in basketball. Shoot, man. You got to keep shooting. You don't get discouraged. You got to keep shooting. You got to put somebody in your lineup, for God's sakes.
All right, Russell Westbrook. You just keep rolling with that philosophy.
He's played all right this year, being the giant NBA fan that I am.
You mean the Lakers sixth man?
He's not coming off the bench.
I don't know. He was at one point.
Anyway.
And by at one point, I mean at some point in his career, he was. Pretty sure it was last year.
Fair. I think it was last year.
Anyways, my quarterback streamer of the week is Mike White. Yes, it's the third one. It's the third Jets player. It is Wheels Up. See what I did there to Chris? Yeah. On White, Wilson, the Garrett Wilson, that is, and Tyler Conklin. Not so much for the run game if you're streaming. I mean, I'm just sorry. I'm a little down on Bam Knight this week. Anyways, Mike White could be your savior for the first round of your playoffs. White was having a tough time with the Bills last week before suffering his rib injury. It was a rib injury, Chris.
I'm sorry, we're talking about Conklin or White? We're talking about Conklin, right?
White.
Oh, you're on to your quarterback.
Yeah, like I said.
Cool.
But this is a much easier matchup for Mike White and the Jets. As I said, they're playing the Lions this week. The Lions have a good run defense, as you've already talked about, Chris. And despite Jeff Okudah playing much better at cornerback lately, the Giants...
Jets.
I said the Giants, yeah. The Lions suck at all things related to defending the pass, whether it is defending the running backs, tight ends, wide receivers. Yeah. Anyone catching the ball, offensive linemen that are eligible to receive a catch, they're bad at covering the ball flying through the air. Chris, do you know who makes the ball fly through the air on a football team? A quarterback. And the quarterback for the playing against the Lions this week is Mike White. And I mean, it could be even Andy Dalton who recommended to play against the Lions. And guess what, Chris? Mike White greater than Andy Dalton. And so Mike White equals smash start. Yeah. And he's available in like 10% of NFL leagues and like 17 or 15% of sleeper leagues. I was like, what?
Meaning his roster percent is around 75-ish? 80-ish?
No. 10 to 15% depending on your platform.
Rostered.
Is how rostered.
Oh, well, you said it in kind of the wrong order. You said he's available in 10 to 15%.
No, I said he was rostered in 10% in NFL and 15%. And you just heard me wrong.
I got you. I suppose that's true. Catch up on chat a little bit here. Doc says, duh. That's probably in reference to Mike White, I guess.
No, you just don't go far back. I know. Chat goes from top to bottom, right?
Yeah, it doesn't. The most recent comment is on the bottom.
But he's responding to the comment I made earlier in a comment to his.
No, he said he's available. There you go. Proof positive. Thank you, Doc. I appreciate it, despite the Boomer Tech comment a moment ago. He says I like it. All right, on to my sleeper of the week, which is, hey, big surprise, Mike White. I don't know. I hope I'm not echoing too many of the same comments, but White is averaging 51 pass attempts in his only two starts. He gets the Lions. We already touched on how bad they are versus the pass. While the Jets are favored, it's only by 1.5 points, and I expect some opportunity for garbage time with White and the Jets, making Mike White my sleeper of the playoffs. For quarterback desperate teams, such as Lamar Jackson / Tyler Huntley managers, and of course Kyler Murray managers. So yeah, Mike White, my sleeper of the week. My apologies, folks. In the spirit of, being communication is our best attribute here on the show, we have a little bit of crossover there, but a little bit more crossover with Dulcich and Mike White. I still like it. So you must have you have a sleeper left, right?
Mm-hmm. My sleeper is Matt Ryan.
Dang.
Versus the Minnesota Vikings. Matt Ryan has been terrible. Yeah, but this is a very good matchup for Matt Ryan. And Chris, I kind of wish I was going to this game. It's up in Minnesota, so it's like a 6-hour drive.
Yeah.
Close by for,
Well, yeah. I mean, it's
living in Iowa and going to see a professional football game.
It's not like going to Dallas to see a Cowboys game like I did back several years ago, 1,000 miles away.
But you were in
16 hours.
You were in Texas already visiting relatives.
No, I went to Texas for the game to visit relatives. By myself, without my family. Technically, it was Thanksgiving, again, like I said, so it was...
Oh, well, in my face then.
Yeah, it was more for the game.
Sorry,
we kept it a secret to my dad, too. It was a surprise to him.
Did you just, did your mom take him to the game and then you showed up and you're like, surprise?
No, not quite that good.
You just, sat down in the seat next to him and you're like, surprise, bitch!
Right, I made up some BS excuse about Kira and the kid at the time, Lizzie. Didn't have two of them. Couldn't make it, whatever. Their family's coming over. This is a good opportunity. Cheaper plane tickets, yada, yada, yada. And then when I got there, in our living room, I was like, hey, guess what? Work on the Cowboys game tomorrow. Mom's not making, Thanksgiving dinner till the day after or whatever we ended up doing. And yeah. It was epic. It's the only game I've ever... let me expound just a little bit, then you can continue. It's the only professional football game I've ever been to, and it was an historic season because it was Zeke and Dak's rookie year, 2016, 17, where we won 12 or 14 games. And yeah, we didn't win the whole shebang, but I was really glad to be at that game. And it was versus the, at the time, Washington Redskins, and Cousins made a little bit of a comeback attempt, but we won. It was great. All right. Enough of that.
That's how long ago it was. Cousins played for Washington.
Yeah, exactly. He played pretty well, too.
5 years ago, maybe?
2016 or 17. I think 16 was their rookie year, if I'm not mistaken. So 6 years ago. 6 years ago.
I don't even remember where I was at now since you...
I'm sorry.
Anyways, I was getting to why Matt Ryan is my sleeper. All his wide receivers are healthy. I even considered making Jelani Woods, the Colts tight end, a tight end of mine. Danielle Hunter, probably the Vikings' best pass rusher, might miss another game this week. He missed last week. And in the last 3 games, Matt Ryan has had his points per game have been poor, but he's played Philly, Pittsburgh, and Dallas, and at least 2 out of those 3 are pretty darn good, if not great defenses. And Pittsburgh's not too bad either. So entering stage left, the Vikings defense, who are allowing the 6th most points to quarterbacks. So I like Matt Ryan as a sleeper this week.
Nice.
Doc says I like Okonkwo for the Titans this week. He was one of my tight end streamers last week, and I nailed that shit on the head. And I thought about it again this week, but it was
but didn't who's the other tight end there? Is it Hunter Henry? No, I'm sorry, I get these guys confused all the time. Help me.
Want to take another stab at it?
Not really.
Austin Hooper
scored the touchdown.
So did Okonkwo, I think.
Oh, really? Okay, I stand corrected. Or
I don't. Maybe Hooper didn't, but he also had
the better usage,
10 points. Yeah,
that feels right. Maybe. Correct. 5 for 5, 68 yards, 9.3 half-point PPR points for us.
Which is still, for a tight end, that's not bad.
I picked him up in Dynasty because I might need one in my pitiful playoff run. All right. Yeah, I was just updating Doc on if we'd have been more proactive.
The Indy game was in Dallas this year, dude.
It was in Dallas? No, it wasn't. That's the whole reason you brought it up.
No, I was like, dude, we should have went, and it was in Dallas. That's why I was like,
dude, we go down to Dallas and pay those exorbitant ticket prices?
Because I've never been to Texas. Oh, like you think they're that much cheaper in Indy?
Oh, you're right. It was at Dallas. My bad.
Oh, weird. Oh.
And corrected. Well, you were wrong, and then you were right.
I think you're sitting though.
What's that?
I think you're sitting. You said you stand corrected, but you're technically seated.
God, dad jokes and puns are the worst. All right, so
I'm a hoot at work.
I bet. I bet. All right, so asking for a friend, I give you. I'm going to include one of these.
Can we do this on Sunday?
I'm not sure he's going to play. No. Pick.
I forfeit.
2. Yeah, pick 2. Pacheco, Ramondre, Dobbins, Mostert, or I could throw a receiver in there if you really want it.
Why didn't you make Mostert one of your guy or your running backs this week?
I'm not so sure Wilson's out yet. And it's Buffalo actually has struggled versus the run, if I'm not mistaken. I think I've made that point the past couple of weeks before this week. I picked him up because needed options, in the playoffs. Mostert, Dobbins, Ramondre, or Pacheco. Pick 2.
I already forfeited.
Or no help whatsoever. How about it? Dobbins, he says. Doc says question mark. I'll just turn to the chat. Yeah, Dobbins, I did make him one of my guys. I also made Pacheco one of my guys this week. Oh, is that what you're asking? Again, I mean, surely, obviously, Ramondre would be a fine start. Probably even above most of those guys, but he's questionable. Did not practice on Thursday, as we were reminded.
You've already answered your question.
So you think Pacheco and Dobbins? Yeah, I think so.
All I said was I forfeit.
Oh, it's a Saturday game too. Okay, well, God bless America. You are an asshole. Yeah, I think Doc's on the right track here. Obviously, Pacheco and Ramondre would be the top starts, but Stevenson's still questionable. Without Stevenson, he goes Dobbins. Yeah, I think.
See, it didn't even need me.
Hey, speaking of a theme, I don't usually need you, except for this wonderful show that we put on a weekly basis.
That's not true at all. You need me.
Apparently, I need you to do the.
I'm not really sure for what, but I need you. You need me for something. Eye candy? I'm not really sure.
Wow, no, that's definitely not it. Do you have any Twitter or Discord questions, or God forbid, an asking for a friend question? Although I
forfeited.
You forfeited until Sunday. Would you forfeit in the Dynasty playoffs too? The Doc's on your side.
I can't because I'm not playing.
Doc's on your side. Definitely the eye candy.
I can't forfeit in the Dynasty playoffs because I'm not playing this week.
No, I meant next week. I meant moving forward for the rest of the season.
Oh, no, I don't think that's allowed.
You pull a Tim and start an out player. It's so bad, man. So bad. Anyway.
Oh, I got a question for you. It is not
fantasy football related whatsoever.
No. It's fantasy football related, but it is not a lineup question.
Okay.
How do you stand on this? Is a long contested thing, and I've recently came up on Twitter earlier this week. How do you stand on people that are not in the playoffs in the sense that they're not playing for the championship playoffs? Where do you stand on them being able to?
Meaning they're out of the playoffs entirely. They're playing in the consolation bracket.
Yes, how do you feel about them making free agency acquisitions?
I made one. Yeah, you play like you normally play.
That's what I think.
I mean,
I think it's so weird that these people are like,
I don't know.
They're like you're not playing for anything other than like you should step out of the way and let the playoff teams have a shot at the players first. I'm like, no.
That makes it too easy for the playoff teams in my
and I think that I think that your commissioner is doing your consolation bracket wrong. Like you should give them something to play for as well. Like in the keeper league,
yeah.
Like in the keeper league,
yep.
I was always like, you get to choose where you draft from and picks 1 through 6. You know, because not everyone wants to pick first. I don't like picking first. I kind of like the middle the middle round. That way, I'm not doing long stretches in between picks.
Right.
It kind of depends on the year too, of like who's still available, and blah blah blah.
I was just gonna say, to give a little context, in the league that I'm third to last in, headed straight for the losers bracket, I picked up a defense because I had to, because I'd played Seattle versus I don't know who last week. It did not work out, and they have a bad matchup tonight versus the Niners. So I picked up the Vikings defense. I did not have it's thin on the waiver, so I didn't have the opportunity to pick up any skill positions.
Right.
So I got ride with what I rode with. I
But I mean, like
2 quarterbacks, yada yada.
I just think it's weird, and I think it's actually, I feel like it's pretty childish that people are like, no, you shouldn't be able to. It's an actual option, I think, in Yahoo where you can make it so that
they can't after the fact.
they can't. Yeah.
That's BS. Yeah.
I'm like, that's
Doc agrees.
dumb.
Play normal.
Agreed.
Yeah. You just play till the end, man. I feel we do that in Rocket League. We do. If I was playing pickup basketball, I do that in pickup basketball. We're down 7. We're not going to win, but put my best foot forward for both my sake and my teammates' sake. That's just the way. And competition's sake.
Right. He
does have one other question. Okay, assuming Ramondre is out, who are we starting for the New England backfield? I said, ew. Like,
Damian Harris. It sounds like he's going to play this week.
Oh, is he? Because last week it was Pierre Strong. But I guess Harris was out?
Yeah.
Yeah, I was hoping it would be...
Harris sounds like he's trending to
I was hoping it would be the
week.
other Harris, I think is his last name also, Kevin.
We'll call him Steve.
Steve. I was hoping it'd be Steve, but it wasn't. Steve is a deep dive into Dynasty that I've been holding on to because I have enough room to hold on to him. That's why.
He's like Cher, only it's Steve.
If you believe in life. Yeah, there you go.
Want to hear a funny story about that song?
He said he saw Harris question what may not be up to date. Yes, please go ahead.
So my ex and I, we went to Des Moines, my state's capital, once, and we were kind of like in their downtown area. We were at this bar arcade, and there was a couple other bars around. We were kind of hopping through, and it was like, oh, we just saw like a Budweiser sign, went in this bar, and that song started playing, and I was just kind of looking around, like drinking my beer and everything, and there on the wall is this picture of a very muscular, sweaty cowboy.
Okay.
And I looked at the picture, and I looked at my then girlfriend, and I looked at the picture again, and I looked at her, and at that point, I was leaning in to say something to her, and the bartender comes up, who at that point was very clearly gay, but
Right,
I've seen like gay bartenders in straight bars, whatever. And he's like, just realized you're in a gay bar, huh, honey? And I'm like, yeah, okay. I'm like, can I get another beer? He's like, oh, you didn't want to leave? I'm like, I don't give a shit, whatever.
I probably would have it a blast. I'm not gonna lie.
He just seemed taken aback. He's like, oh, I'm like, whatever, man. I'm like, dude, I'm from Iowa City. Like, that place is gayer than this town. He's like, oh, really? He's like, really? I'm like, yeah. He's like, oh, okay, whatever. I'm like,
well, people hear Iowa, they just think corn farmers and whatnot.
Right. I'm just like, whatever.
Right. To touch on.
I was looking at this like picture of this very sweaty, muscular cowboy. I'm like,
on the wall, right?
As Cher's playing, I'm like, this is.
I was like 60% listening, 40% not. So when I heard sweaty cowboy, I thought you were literally talking about like a guy in like cosplay or something. I didn't know what was going on. I was like,
nope, he was a shirtless, sweaty, muscular cowboy. I'm like,
but it was a picture on the wall, right?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Gotcha. That's the part I missed. To touch on Doc's quick question about the New England backfield, New England Patriots running back Damian Harris' thigh was limited during Thursday's practice session. This marks back-to-back days that Harris has been limited during practice, so he's trending in.
Like I said.
So Lenny Fournette would be a better play than whomever from New England? Oh, I would think so. He came off a 10-point game. Was that half point or full point? It might have been full point PPR or full point. Yeah, the right way to say that.
Man, I don't know. Who are the Patriots playing again this week?
Zach?
I would play Harris over Lenny Fofo.
England
versus the Raiders.
There you go. That's a pretty good matchup. Bucks at home versus the Bengals. Bengals have been pretty good defense. I'm not sure about on the ground, but that's been their
strong.
And then of course,
Rashad
White being in the way. Not that Lenny hasn't been playing. again, had an okay week last week. Damian
And
Harris.
was it Rashad White's week last week? Just okay as well.
Probably. I find that tab. Rashad. Yeah, 7.2. I think Fournette beat him.
Wow.
53% snaps for Rashad. Oh, almost identical. 47% snaps, 7.6 fantasy points for Lenny Fofo.
Wow.
Against Cincy, that's kind of scary.
That was us against the 49ers last week, who are probably better at running against the run than the Bengals.
I would assume so. Absolutely, I would assume so. Yeah. Bengals are pretty good through the air in terms of defense. Again, Damian Harris gets the Raiders, which
I'm taking Harris. If Ramondre doesn't play, I'm taking Harris because Harris is still a pretty darn good running back.
Oh yeah, Raiders are 7th worst versus the RB in terms of fantasy points per game. Yep, I think I'd go Damian Harris. They've shown they'll use him when.
And now he's saying I don't have Damian Harris. So what? Did you want us to say Steve? Because otherwise it's Steve.
Lenny baby, the move. Is this ZTT League, Doc? Because I know you have Mr. Lenny Fofo there, but I thought you had. Oh, is it Pacheco and Lenny Fofo? Yes. And then you're starting through, well, of course, you're starting 3 wide receivers every single week because you have 4 solid ones to turn to. I don't think you have another option. Not in that waiver wire. I mean, it's free and clear now. The waivers have run, so it's a free agent thing. But I don't think you have a better option off the top of my head. Put it that way. As I click on the league. Sure you don't have any asking for a friend, Josh?
Forfeited.
Fofo, Kareem Hunt. We keep shooting that down every single week. Oh, he was asking because he has Pierre Strong. That's why he was asking. Oh. I just think I got to give the nod to Damian Harris. But we're speculating. We are clearly speculating. Like, it is what it is. You got nothing on waivers. Absolutely nothing.
Pierre Strong was decent last week.
That's why he's asking. I don't blame him.
I still think it's Damian Harris.
Which would mean he's forced to start Lenny Fofo over Pierre Strong.
Yowzers.
You got a couple days to mull it over. Ask me again in 2 days.
Come back on Sunday.
Yeah, right. Well, there's Saturday games too, so there's that. Dude, I didn't even think about that.
All right, any of those teams playing on Saturday? Don't think so.
I have no idea. No, I don't think so.
Nope.
3 games, yeah. Yeah, come back on Sunday. Because I don't think we're doing a show Saturday morning.
No, I have shit to do.
Exactly.
Speaking of stuff to do, I have to go to bed. Let's get out of here, Chris.
Let's do it. Hour and 15 in. I'll bring us out. That sounded weird. Okay. We have been Amazing Fantasy Football.
Out of what?
I'm just not going to go there.
Okay.
We have been Amazing Fantasy Football. Join us every Thursday night at 8 p.m. Central Time for our favorite 5 starts of the week. Our favorite streamers at the tight end and sometimes quarterback position. And our sleepers of the week. Join us on Sunday mornings at 10 a.m. Central for last minute, up to the minute injury updates and news and lineup questions. Until then, I've been Chris.
I've been a very increasingly tired Josh. Sorry about that.
Doc, I appreciate the participation and the viewership.
Thanks
You're the
for
best
stopping
man.
by.
Good night, fellas. Thanks for the stream.
You are the best man.
Good evening. I'm confused.